My wife once told me honesty is the key to marriage. She just forgot to mention who she was giving the keys to. I'm Gavin Mitchell, 36 years old, data analyst for a mid-sized insurance company in Milwaukee. I spend my days calculating risk assessments and probability matrices, but somehow I completely missed the warning signs in my own marriage. Elena always said I was too analytical, too focused on numbers instead of feelings. Turns out she was right about one thing. I should have been calculating the odds of her screwing around behind my back. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. The morning everything changed started like any other Tuesday in our upscale townhouse on the east side. Elena sat at our granite kitchen island, perfectly manicured fingers wrapped around her third cup of coffee, phone glued to her ear like it was surgically attached. Her interior design business had been booming lately, or so she claimed. New clients, big projects, late nights at the office. No, Benny, the marble samples won't work with that lighting, she purred into the phone, twirling a strand of her perfectly highlighted blonde hair. We need something warmer, more intimate. Benny, Ben Roth, her brilliant new client, a local real estate kingpin with more money than sense and apparently more charm than morals. She'd been mentioning him constantly for the past 3 months. I'm a Benny this, Benny that. Benny thinks I have such vision. Benny says I'm the most talented designer he's ever worked with. I used to think it was cute how excited she got about her work. Now I wondered what other services she was providing. Morning, beautiful, I said, kissing the top of her head. She barely acknowledged me, just waved her free hand dismissively while continuing her conversation about thread counts and color palettes. Elena Mitchell, 34, had always been ambitious. When we met 5 years ago at a gallery opening, she was working for a small design firm, dreaming of starting her own business. I supported her through the lean years, helped finance her startup, celebrated every small victory. Now that she was successful, it felt like I'd become furniture in my own home, functional but largely ignored. I have to go, Benny. Yes, I'll see you tonight for the final walkthrough. She hung up and finally looked at me. Good morning, honey. Sorry, big project timeline. Another late night? I asked, pouring myself coffee from the pot she'd nearly emptied. Afraid so. This client is very hands-on. Wants to personally approve every detail. I'll bet he does, I thought but didn't say. Instead, I smiled and nodded like the supportive husband I'd been trained to be. That evening, I sat alone in our living room, eating takeout Chinese food and watching Elena's location on our shared Find My Friends app. According to her phone, she was at the Marriott downtown. Funny thing about that hotel. I'd been tracking our credit card statements lately, and we'd been paying for a lot of 4-star accommodations we'd never stayed in. Always on nights when Elena had client meetings. My phone buzzed with a text from Maya Rodriguez, my best friend since college, and, coincidentally, the HR director at Elena's old firm. Coffee tomorrow. I need to vent about work drama. Maya had always been straight with me, sometimes brutally so. If anyone would give me the unvarnished truth about what was happening, it would be her. The next morning, I met Maya at our usual spot, a little cafe near her office that served coffee strong enough to wake anyone. You look like hell, she said, sliding into the booth across from me. Thanks. You always know just what to say. Maya studied my face with the practiced eye of someone who'd spent years reading people's bullshit. What's going on, Gav? And don't tell me nothing. I've seen happier faces at tax audits. I told her about Elena's late nights, the mysterious hotel charges, the constant phone calls with Benny. Maya listened without interrupting, her expression growing more concerned with each detail. How long has this been going on? She asked when I finished. 3 months, maybe 4. And you haven't confronted her? What am I supposed to say? Hey, honey, are you cheating on me with your client? I need proof. Maya leaned forward. Gavin, I like Elena, but she's been different lately. More, I don't know, secretive? And this Benny guy, I've heard things. What kind of things? He's married, for one. Wife's name is Susan, nice lady, volunteers at the animal shelter. And he's got a reputation for being handsy with female contractors. There was talk about a lawsuit a few years back, but it got settled quietly. My stomach clenched. You think Elena knows he's married? Maya's silence was answer enough. That night, I decided to test my theory. When Elena announced she'd be working late again, I suggested we grab dinner first. Can't, honey. Benny's flying in from Chicago, and we need to review the final designs before tomorrow's presentation. Chicago? I thought the project was here in Milwaukee. She paused just for a second, but I caught it. It is. He was visiting other properties. Real estate guys travel constantly. Another lie. I'd checked. Benny's company was local, no Chicago connections. Over the next week, I became a detective in my own marriage. I found receipts for lingerie I'd never seen Elena wear, restaurant charges for places we'd never been together, and a credit card statement showing purchases at Victoria's Secret on days when she'd claimed to be shopping for client gifts. The final piece of evidence came from an unexpected source. I was grabbing lunch near Elena's office when I ran into Tara Williams, Elena's best friend and biggest gossip in their social circle. "Gavin, how are you, sweetie?" Tara air-kissed both my cheeks, reeking of expensive perfume and wine despite it being barely noon. "Good, Tara. How's the real estate business?" "Booming. Speaking of which, you're so lucky Elena landed that Benny Roth contract. That man is absolutely gorgeous. If I weren't married..." She giggled and took another sip of her wine. "Yeah, Elena's worked really hard on that project. I'll say. She was just telling me yesterday how dedicated she's been. Brunching with Benny's abs and Elena's morals," I said. Tara laughed at her own joke, completely oblivious to what she'd just revealed. "Brunching?" "Oh, their morning meetings. Elena says Benny likes to start early, get the business out of the way so they can focus on the fun stuff." Another giggle, another sip. I excused myself and walked back to my car, hands shaking. Tara's drunken confession had confirmed what I'd suspected, but hoped wasn't true. Elena wasn't just cheating, she was flaunting it to her friends. That evening, I sat at my laptop and did what I do best, analyze data. I created a spreadsheet tracking Elena's lies, the hotel charges, the suspicious phone calls, the times her location didn't match her stated whereabouts. The pattern was undeniable. When Elena came home at midnight, claiming exhaustion from another client dinner, I was waiting in the living room with a legal pad. "We need to talk," I said. She froze in the doorway, still in the black dress she'd worn to seduce another woman's husband. "Can't it wait? I'm exhausted." "No, it can't." Elena sighed dramatically and perched on the edge of the couch, as far from me as possible. "What's this about?" "I think we should make a list." "A list?" "Pros and cons, about our marriage. I think it would help us both get some clarity." Elena's face lit up, probably relief that I wasn't confronting her about the affair. "That's actually a great idea. Very mature." "Good. Why don't you start? I'll step out for a few minutes, give you some privacy to really think about it." I handed her the legal pad and walked upstairs to our bedroom, where I'd already packed 2 suitcases and gathered the documents I'd need. While Elena wrote her list of my shortcomings, I was preparing my exit strategy. 20 minutes later, I came back downstairs. Elena had filled 2 pages with neat handwriting. "Your turn," she said, handing me the pad. I didn't need to read her list to know what it said. Instead, I wrote one word in large block letters. "Divorce." I tore off the page and handed it to her. "Here's my list." Elena's face went white as she read my single-word response. "Gavin, what? I know about Benny." The legal pad slipped from her fingers. "I don't know what you think you know, but I know about the hotels, the lies, the fact that you've been screwing a married man for months while I paid the bills." Elena's composure cracked. "It's not what you think. It's complicated." "No, it's really not. You made a choice. Now I'm making mine." I walked to the front door and opened it. A locksmith stood on our porch, tool bag in hand. "Mr. Mitchell, you called about changing the locks?" "That's right. My wife was just leaving." Elena stared at me in shock. "You can't be serious." "Absolutely serious. You have 10 minutes to pack whatever you need tonight. The rest of your stuff will be boxed up and waiting at your office tomorrow." "Gavin, please. We can work this out. It was just a mistake. It meant nothing." I looked at the woman I'd loved for 5 years, the woman I'd supported and believed in, the woman who'd been lying to my face for months. If it meant nothing, why did you do it? She had no answer for that. Moving out of your own home is a special kind of humiliation. Turns out you can fit an entire failed marriage into 3 suitcases and 1 trash bag. I'd rented a furnished apartment across town. Nothing fancy, just a place to regroup while the lawyers sorted out the divorce. Elena had spent the past week calling, texting, showing up at my office, begging for another chance. Each plea made me angrier. "It was just physical," she'd sobbed during one particularly pathetic phone call. "It didn't mean anything emotional. If she lied any harder, she'd sprain her tongue." Maya met me for lunch at a diner near my new place. She'd been my sounding board through the worst of it, listening to me vent while keeping me from doing anything stupid. "How are you holding up?" she asked, sliding into the cracked vinyl booth. "I've been better. Elena's making this as difficult as possible." "What do you mean?" "She's telling everyone I kicked her out without warning, that I'm being cruel and unreasonable, playing the victim." Maya stirred her coffee thoughtfully. Speaking of Elena, I need to tell you something about her job situation. What about it? She doesn't have one anymore. I set down my sandwich. What? We had to let her go yesterday. Turns out she violated several company policies during her relationship with Benny. I thought she was freelancing now. She was, but she was still on our books as a contractor for the Roth project. Problem is, she was bad-mouthing the firm to Benny, trying to get him to break his contract with us and hire her directly. We have emails. I felt a grim satisfaction. Elena's affair wasn't just destroying our marriage. It was destroying her career. There's more, Maya continued. I did some digging on Benny Roth. Guy's got serious financial problems. Leverage to the hilt, behind on several loans. Word is, he's been using client funds to cover personal expenses. His wife doesn't know? Susan, a poor woman's clueless. Thinks her husband is a successful businessman, doesn't know he's mortgaged their future to maintain his lifestyle. An idea began forming in my mind. Maya, hypothetically, if someone wanted to make sure Susan Roth knew what kind of man she was married to, how would they go about it? Maya raised an eyebrow. Hypothetically? They might start with the security footage from the Marriott downtown. Hotel cameras catch a lot of interesting interactions. That afternoon, I called Kyle Patterson, my friend from work. Kyle was our IT specialist, a guy who could find digital needles in electronic haystacks. I need a favor, I told him over beers at a sports bar. Shoot. You know anyone who works security at the downtown hotels? Kyle grinned. My cousin Rick works at the Marriott. Why? I explained what I needed. Kyle listened, nodding slowly. Normally I'd say you're crazy, but Elena always struck me as fake. Too perfect, you know? Like she was performing all the time. Can Rick help? For the right price, Rick can help with a lot of things. Oh, give me a few days. While Kyle worked his magic, I focused on other aspects of my revenge plan. Elena had frozen our joint checking account, thinking she could force me to negotiate. What she didn't know was that I'd moved most of our savings into a separate legal trust weeks ago. Her lawyer would eventually get her half, but not until after the divorce was final. The first video arrived on Thursday. Kyle's cousin had come through, security footage from the Marriott lobby showing Elena and Benny in what could charitably be called a passionate embrace. The timestamp showed it was taken during one of Elena's supposed client meetings. This is just the appetizer, Kyle said, handing me a flash drive. Rick found 3 more encounters over the past 2 months. Your wife wasn't exactly discreet. I studied the footage on my laptop. Elena looked happy, relaxed, completely different from the distant woman she'd been at home. Benny had his hands all over her, and she was loving every second of it. What are you going to do with it? Kyle asked. Send a copy to Susan Roth. She deserves to know what kind of man she's married to. And the other copies? I smiled grimly. Insurance. That evening, I created an anonymous email account and sent Susan Roth a carefully worded message. I thought you should know what your husband does during his business meetings. I attached the clearest video and hit send. The response was faster than I'd expected. My phone rang at 7 a.m. the next morning. Elena's number. What did you do? She screamed before I could say hello. Good morning to you two. Susan Roth called me last night. She knows about Benny and me. She's filing for divorce. Interesting. How did she find out? Don't play dumb, Gavin. I know this was you. I have no idea what you're talking about. Maybe Benny wasn't as discreet as you thought. Elena was crying now. You don't understand. Benny's business is tied up with Susan's family money. If she divorces him, he'll lose everything. Not my problem. It is your problem. He's threatening to sue me for breach of contract, says I seduced him and ruined his marriage. I almost laughed. So now you're the victim? Gavin, please. I know I made mistakes, but this is destroying both our lives. Can't we work something out? We are working something out. It's called divorce. I hung up and immediately called Maya to share the good news. Elena's world was crumbling, and I was just getting started. The next phase of my plan required patience and careful timing. Benny Roth was predictable. Every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 p.m. he worked out at Elite Fitness, an upscale gym where he could show off his artificially enhanced physique to impressionable young women. I joined the gym and studied his routine. Benny was all flash, no substance, the kind of guy who grunted loudly during light workouts and spent more time flexing in mirrors than actually exercising. He drove a leased Porsche that he parked in the fire lane, confident that his charm and money would get him out of any trouble. On Thursday night, I waited in the parking garage. When Benny emerged from the gym, sweaty and pumped up from his performance, I was leaning against his precious car. We need to talk, I said. Benny stopped short. He was bigger than me, 6'2" to my 5'10", with the kind of muscles you get from expensive personal trainers and designer steroids. But I had something he didn't: righteous anger and nothing left to lose. Gavin, right? Elena's husband. He tried to sound casual, but I could see the nervousness in his eyes. Ex-husband, thanks to you. Look, man, I'm sorry about how this went down. Elena said you two were having problems, that the marriage was basically over. Did she also mention she was still sleeping in my bed when she wasn't sleeping in yours? Benny shifted uncomfortably. I don't want any trouble. Too late for that. I pulled out a folded piece of paper. I made you a list. Pros and cons of screwing another man's wife. I don't need... Pros, I read aloud. Great closeness, expensive hotels, feeling like a big man. Cons. Destroyed 2 marriages, lost your wife's family money, about to lose your business, and... I slapped him across the face with the paper. You pissed off the wrong guy. Benny's face flushed red. You little shit, You'll what? Hit me? Please do. I've got my phone recording, and there are security cameras everywhere. Assault charges would be the perfect finishing touch to your week. Instead of swinging, Benny grabbed for the paper. I let him have it and walked around to the driver's side of his Porsche. Using my house key, I carved a message into the paint. Con. Trusting my wife with you. You psycho. Benny lunged toward me, but I was already walking away. Send Elena my regards, I called over my shoulder. Oh, wait, you can't. Susan's divorce lawyer got an injunction. You're not allowed to contact any of your former mistresses. I could hear him cursing and shouting threats as I reached my car, but I didn't look back. Phase 2 was complete. Time to prepare for the finale. Elena's desperation was becoming entertaining. She'd been calling constantly, showing up at my apartment, even trying to turn our mutual friends against me. According to her version of events, I was a controlling monster who'd destroyed her life over a minor indiscretion. The truth was simpler. I was just getting started. Maya had become my unofficial intelligence officer, feeding me updates on Elena and Benny's continuing downward spiral. Elena was staying with Tara, sleeping on her couch and borrowing money for basic expenses. Benny was facing divorce proceedings, business investigations, and the loss of several major contracts. Susan Roth hired the best divorce attorney in the city, Maya reported over coffee. She's going after everything: the house, the business, even Benny's car collection. Good for her. Elena's been calling the office, trying to get her job back. Says she'll work for half her old salary. And? My boss laughed. Elena burned those bridges when she tried to steal the Roth contract. I smiled. Elena had always been so confident in her ability to charm her way out of problems. Reality was proving less accommodating. That evening, Kyle called with an update on our ongoing investigation. Rick found something interesting in the hotel's guest records. Benny's been using the same room for 6 months, always paying cash, always booking under fake names. 6 months? Elena told me their affair started 3 months ago. Looks like she was lying about that too. Rick also found records of other women. Your wife wasn't Benny's first extramarital adventure. The betrayal cut deeper than I'd expected. Elena hadn't just cheated, she'd been part of a pattern, just another conquest for a serial adulterer. There's more, Kyle continued. Rick's girlfriend works at the hotel restaurant. She remembers Elena and Benny having loud arguments, something about Elena wanting Benny to leave his wife. So Elena hadn't just been having an affair, she'd been trying to break up Benny's marriage. The woman I'd loved for 5 years was even worse than I'd imagined. That night, I finalized plans for the grand finale. Benny owned several commercial properties around the city, including a renovated warehouse that hosted charity events and corporate functions. According to his website, he was hosting a fundraiser for the local children's hospital on Saturday night, a black tie affair designed to rehabilitate his image after the divorce scandal. I bought a ticket using a fake name and spent the week preparing my presentation. Saturday evening arrived with perfect timing. The charity gala was packed with Milwaukee's social elite, business leaders, politicians, society wives, and local media. Benny had spared no expense, trying to prove he was still a pillar of the community despite his personal problems. I arrived early and positioned myself near the AV booth. Kyle had helped me prepare a special presentation, complete with photos, videos, and documentation of Benny's affairs. The hotel security footage was just the beginning. We'd compiled a comprehensive record of his infidelity, financial irregularities, and business misconduct. Elena was there, of course, playing the role of the wronged woman who'd been seduced by a powerful man. She wore a red dress that probably cost more than most people's rent, borrowed money she'd never be able to repay. Tara stood beside her, both of them working the crowd with practiced smiles. Benny took the stage at 8 p.m., looking confident and polished in his custom tuxedo. He began with the usual platitudes about community service and giving back, his voice carrying easily through the sound system. Ladies and gentlemen, we're here tonight to support our city's most vulnerable children. I waited until he hit his stride, until the crowd was fully engaged before making my move. The AV booth was unguarded. Kyle's cousin Rick had made sure of that. I plugged in my flash drive and took control of the presentation system. The first image appeared on the massive screen behind Benny. Elena and him kissing in the hotel lobby, the timestamp clearly visible. The crowd's murmur started immediately. Benny turned around and froze. What the hell? The second image was more explicit. Benny with his hands all over Elena in the hotel elevator. Then came the third, the two of them entering a hotel room together. A picture's worth 1,000 cons, I announced, stepping out from behind the AV booth. The crowd erupted. Women gasped, men shouted, cameras flashed as people started taking pictures of the screen. Elena's face went white, then red, then white again. She tried to run, but the crowd had closed in around her. "That's Elena Mitchell," someone shouted. "She designed my office." "And that's Benny Roth," another voice added. "Isn't he married?" Benny was frantically gesturing to his security team, but they were as stunned as everyone else. The images kept cycling. Hotel receipts, text messages, even a recording of one of their phone conversations that Kyle had managed to intercept. "This is a private matter," Benny finally managed to shout into his microphone. "Not anymore," I replied, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Ladies and gentlemen, you came here tonight to support children's charities. Instead, you're watching a man who stole from his own wife to pay for hotel rooms with other men's wives." The crowd turned ugly fast. Someone threw a dinner roll at the screen. Another person started booing. Within minutes, the elegant charity gala had become a mob scene. Elena tried to escape through a side door, but Tara grabbed her arm. "You told me it was just business," Tara screamed. "You made me lie to Gavin." Even Elena's best friend was turning against her. The social circle that had been her lifeline was collapsing in real time. Benny abandoned the stage and ran for the exit, but his own wife was waiting for him. Susan Roth had apparently decided to attend the gala after all, accompanied by her divorce attorney and a photographer. "Having fun, darling?" Susan asked sweetly as Benny tried to push past her. The photographer's flash went off repeatedly, capturing Benny's humiliation for posterity. Tomorrow's newspaper would have a field day. I slipped out during the chaos, but not before retrieving my flash drive. The evening had exceeded my wildest expectations. Elena and Benny's reputations were destroyed, their social connections severed, their futures in ruins. But I wasn't done yet. The fallout from the charity gala was immediate and devastating. Local news picked up the story. Social media exploded with photos and videos from the event, and both Elena and Benny became pariahs overnight. Elena showed up at my apartment the next morning, looking like she hadn't slept. Her borrowed dress was wrinkled, her makeup smeared, her perfectly styled hair a mess. "You destroyed me," she said when I opened the door. "No, you destroyed yourself. I just made sure everyone knew about it. I have nothing left. No job, no money, no friends. Tara kicked me out." "Not my problem." Elena pushed past me into the apartment. "We're still married, Gavin. I have rights." "Actually, we're not. The divorce was finalized yesterday. You would have known that if you'd bothered to read the papers your lawyer served you." Her face crumpled. "I can't afford a lawyer anymore." "Should have thought of that before you decided to sleep with a married man." Elena looked around my sparse apartment, probably calculating what she could take. "What about our stuff? Our furniture? Our savings?" "The furniture's in storage. You can have half when you pay the storage fees. As for savings, there aren't any. Turns out divorce is expensive." "You're lying." I showed her the bank statements. Our joint account had exactly $47.32. The rest had gone to lawyers, moving expenses, and settling our debts. "You planned this," Elena whispered. "I'm good with numbers, remember? You should have considered the financial implications before you decided to cheat." Elena lunged at me, fingernails aimed at my face, but I stepped aside and she crashed into the kitchen counter. "Get out," I said calmly, "and don't come back." She left, cursing and threatening to sue me for everything I had. Good luck with that, I thought. The next few days were quiet. Elena had apparently disappeared, probably trying to find some other sucker to support her. Benny was dealing with his own problems. Susan's divorce attorney had frozen all his assets, and several of his business partners were demanding investigations into his financial practices. I thought the drama was over. I was wrong. On Thursday morning, Benny showed up at my office. He'd lost weight, his expensive clothes looked slept in, and his usual arrogant demeanor had been replaced by desperate rage. "This ends now," he said, cornering me by the coffee machine. I'm sorry. Do we have an appointment? I asked, pouring myself a cup like nothing was wrong. You think you're clever, don't you? Destroying my marriage, my business, my reputation. I didn't destroy anything. I just shared some information. Benny grabbed my shirt. You ruined my life. No, you ruined your life when you decided to cheat on your wife. I just made sure there were consequences. Several of my coworkers had gathered to watch the confrontation. Someone had probably called security, but I wasn't worried. I had one more card to play. You want to settle this? I asked. Fine. Conference room B, 10 minutes. Bring whoever you want as witnesses. Benny looked confused but nodded. He probably thought he could intimidate me in private. 10 minutes later, Benny walked into the conference room expecting to find me alone. Instead, he found Susan Roth, her divorce attorney, Detective Liz Carmody from the Milwaukee Police Department, and 3 of his former business partners. What is this? Benny demanded. This is your intervention, I replied. Everyone in this room has something to say to you. Susan spoke first. I want my grandmother's jewelry back, the pieces you sold to pay for your hotel rooms. The divorce attorney was next. Mr. Roth, you violated several court orders regarding asset disclosure. Detective Carmody has some questions about that. Detective Carmody, a no-nonsense woman in her 40s, opened a file folder. Mr. Roth, we've received complaints about financial irregularities in your business dealings, specifically the use of client escrow funds for personal expenses. Benny's face went white. This is harassment. No, I said. This is accountability. One of his business partners, a man named Jim Crawford, leaned forward. Benny, you owe my company $200,000. When are you planning to pay it back? The meeting continued for 30 minutes, each person detailing Benny's various crimes and betrayals. By the end, he was sweating through his expensive shirt and mumbling about lawyers. Gentlemen, ladies, I said, standing up, I think we've covered everything. Mr. Roth, unless you have something constructive to add, I suggest you leave. Benny looked around the room at the faces of people whose lives he'd damaged, people who were finally holding him accountable. Without another word, he walked out. Detective Carmody stayed behind. Mr. Mitchell, I have to ask, how did you organize all this? I'm good with data analysis. Once I started looking into Mr. Roth's business practices, the patterns became obvious. I just connected people who had similar concerns. And your wife? Ex-wife. She made her choices. The detective nodded. Well, you've certainly stirred up a hornet's nest. Mr. Roth is facing multiple investigations now. Good. Maybe next time he'll think twice before destroying other people's lives. That afternoon, Elena made one final appearance. She was waiting by my car in the office parking lot, and she looked desperate. Gavin, please, I need help. I have nowhere to go. Call your parents. They won't talk to me. They saw the news coverage. Call Benny. He's broke. Susan took everything. I unlocked my car. Not my problem. Elena grabbed my arm. I'm sorry, okay? I made mistakes, but we loved each other once. That has to count for something. I looked at the woman who'd shared my bed for 5 years, who'd promised to love and honor me, who'd thrown it all away for a few months of excitement with a married man. You're right, I said. It does count for something. For a moment, hope flickered in her eyes. It counts as a lesson learned. Elena's face twisted with rage. She swung at me, her fist connecting with my jaw. The punch was weak, more frustrated than dangerous, but it was assault nonetheless. I stepped back and pulled out my phone. Strike 3. What? Strike 1 was cheating. Strike 2 was lying about it. Strike 3 was physical assault. I showed her the phone's screen. I'd been recording our conversation. Congratulations, Elena. You just committed a crime on video. Elena realized what she'd done and tried to grab my phone. I stepped aside, and she stumbled into a parked car, setting off its alarm. The commotion attracted attention. Other employees started gathering, watching Elena make a spectacle of herself in the parking lot. Someone called security. You bastard! Elena screamed, loud enough for everyone to hear. You destroyed my life. No, I said calmly. You destroyed your own life. I just made sure everyone knew about it. Security arrived, followed by the police. Elena was arrested for assault and disturbing the peace. As they put her in the patrol car, she looked at me through the window with pure hatred. I felt nothing but relief. The crowd of coworkers and bystanders started to disperse, but not before several people came up to shake my hand or pat my back. Word had gotten around about Elena's affair and my creative revenge. Instead of sympathy, I was getting congratulations. Good for you, man, said Tom from accounting. She had it coming. Wish I'd been that smart when my ex cheated, added Sarah from HR. Even my boss, who usually avoided office drama, stopped by. Gavin, take tomorrow off. You've earned it. As I drove home, I reflected on the past few weeks. Elena was facing criminal charges and had no money for a good lawyer. Benny was under investigation by multiple agencies and facing financial ruin. Both of their reputations were destroyed. Their social circles had abandoned them, and their futures looked bleak. Meanwhile, I was free. Free from a lying wife, free from a toxic marriage, free to start over with a clean slate. That evening, Maya called to check on me. "How are you feeling?" she asked. "Honestly, great. For the first time in months, I feel like myself again." "Any regrets?" I thought about it. "Just one." "What's that?" "I should have done this sooner." Maya laughed. "So what's next for the newly single Gavin Mitchell?" I looked around my small apartment, at the simple furniture and bare walls that represented my new beginning. "I'm thinking about getting a dog. Maybe a nice loyal breed. Something that won't run off with the neighbor." Sounds perfect. The next morning, I woke up to sunshine streaming through my windows and the sound of birds singing outside. For the first time in years, I felt genuinely happy. My phone had several missed calls from unknown numbers, probably reporters wanting to interview me about the charity gala incident. I deleted them without listening. There was one message I did want to hear, though. Kyle had called with an update. "Dude, you're not going to believe this. Benny got arrested last night. Turns out Detective Carmody found evidence of embezzlement. He's looking at serious jail time." I smiled. Justice had a way of working itself out. Around noon, I decided to take a walk through my old neighborhood. I wanted to see the townhouse where Elena and I had lived, maybe get some closure. The house looked smaller than I remembered. There was a for sale sign on the lawn. Elena must have been forced to sell to pay her legal bills. A young couple was standing on the sidewalk, looking at the property with a realtor. "Beautiful neighborhood," the realtor was saying. "Very quiet, respectable families." If only they knew, I thought. As I turned to leave, I saw a familiar figure walking toward me. Elena, looking haggard and defeated, carrying a small suitcase. "Gavin," she said when she saw me, "I didn't expect to see you here." "Just taking a walk. I hear you're selling the house." "I don't have a choice. Legal fees, court costs." She trailed off. We stood there for a moment, two people who'd once promised to love each other forever, now strangers connected only by shared history and mutual destruction. "Where will you go?" I asked, surprising myself with the question. "My sister's place in Phoenix. She said I can stay until I get back on my feet." "That's good. Fresh start." Elena looked at me with something that might have been regret. "Do you ever wonder how things might have been different?" "No," I said honestly. "You made your choice. I made mine. We both have to live with the consequences." She nodded and walked away, her heels clicking on the sidewalk as she headed toward whatever came next. I watched her go, feeling nothing but relief that this chapter of my life was finally closed. That evening, I met Maya and Kyle for dinner at our favorite restaurant. We sat on the patio drinking beer and watching the sunset over the city. "So," Maya said, raising her glass, "what should we toast to?" I thought about everything that had happened, the betrayal, the revenge, the destruction of two lives, and my own rebirth from the ashes of a failed marriage. "To new beginnings," I said. "To new beginnings," they echoed. We clinked glasses as the sun disappeared behind the Milwaukee skyline. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new adventures. But tonight, I was exactly where I wanted to be, free, surrounded by real friends, and finally at peace. Elena and Benny had learned the hard way that actions have consequences. They'd gambled with other people's lives and lost everything. Their story was ending in disgrace and ruin. Mine was just beginning. As we finished our drinks and prepared to leave, Kyle's phone buzzed with a news alert. "Holy shit," he said, reading the screen. "Benny just got sentenced to 5 years for embezzlement." "And Elena?" Maya asked. "Pleaded guilty to assault, probation, and community service." I felt a final wave of satisfaction wash over me. Justice had been served, karma had collected its due, and the people who'd tried to destroy my life had destroyed themselves instead. We walked out into the warm evening air, 3 friends ready to face whatever came next. Behind us, the restaurant buzzed with conversation and laughter, the sound of people living their lives, making their choices, dealing with their consequences. Some stories end with forgiveness and redemption, others end with revenge and justice. This one ended with the simple satisfaction of knowing that sometimes, if you're smart enough and patient enough, the universe will help you balance the scales. Elena had once told me that honesty was the key to marriage. She was right about that, even if she'd forgotten to practice what she preached. The truth had set me free. Free from her lies, free from her betrayal, free from the prison of a loveless marriage. As I walked to my car, I pulled out my phone and deleted Elena's contact information. There was no reason to keep it anymore. She was part of my past now, a cautionary tale about the price of infidelity and the power of consequences. I drove home through the quiet streets of Milwaukee, past the houses where families were settling in for the night, past the bars where people were making the kinds of choices that would shape their futures, past the hotels where other people's marriages were probably ending or beginning. At a red light, I caught my reflection in the rearview mirror. I looked different. Older, maybe, but stronger. More confident. The man staring back at me had been tested and had emerged victorious. The light turned green, and I drove toward home, toward my new life, toward whatever adventures awaited a man who'd learned that sometimes the best revenge is simply letting people destroy themselves. In the end, Elena had been right about one thing. I was too analytical, too focused on numbers instead of feelings. But sometimes that's exactly what you need to be. Sometimes the cold calculation of cause and effect is more powerful than any emotional response. Elena and Benny had made their calculations too. They'd weighed the pros and cons of their affair and decided the benefits outweighed the risks. They'd been wrong about that, spectacularly wrong. I'd made my own calculations, my own list of pros and cons. The math was simple. They'd destroyed my life, so I'd destroyed theirs. The equation was balanced, the books were closed, and justice had been served. As I pulled into my apartment complex, I saw Mrs. Chen from 3B walking her ancient poodle. She waved, and I waved back. Simple human connection, honest and uncomplicated. "Beautiful evening," she called out. "Yes, it is," I replied, and meant it. I climbed the stairs to my apartment, unlocked the door, and stepped inside. The place was small, sparse, nothing like the elegant townhouse I'd shared with Elena. But it was mine, earned through honest work and paid for with clean money. I opened a beer, sat on my second-hand couch, and turned on the TV. The local news was on, and there was Benny's mugshot filling the screen as the anchor described his sentencing. 5 years for embezzlement, his business empire in ruins, his reputation destroyed. I raised my beer to the TV. "Cheers, Benny." The next story was about a charity fundraiser that had gone horribly wrong, complete with grainy cell phone footage of Elena running from the hotel ballroom. The anchor described it as a cautionary tale about the dangers of social media and public humiliation. I raised my beer again. "Cheers, Elena." Then I turned off the TV and sat in the quiet of my apartment, listening to the sounds of normal life around me. Someone cooking dinner, a couple having a quiet conversation, a dog barking in the distance, the sounds of people living honest lives, making honest choices, dealing with honest consequences. Tomorrow I would go back to work, back to analyzing data and calculating risks for other people. But tonight I was going to enjoy the simple pleasure of being alone in my own space, free from lies and betrayal and the exhausting work of maintaining a marriage built on deception. I finished my beer and went to bed, sleeping peacefully for the first time in months. In my dreams, I was making lists again, not pros and cons of staying married to a cheater, but plans for the future, places to travel, things to learn, people to meet. When I woke up the next morning, sunlight was streaming through my windows, and my phone was buzzing with a text from Maya. "Coffee later? I have gossip about Elena's community service assignment." I smiled and texted back, "Absolutely. I love a good story with a moral." And that's exactly what this was. A story with a clear moral. Cheat on your spouse, lie to your friends, and betray the people who love you, and eventually the universe will send you a bill for services rendered. Elena and Benny had received their bill, and they'd paid it in full. Their story was over, filed away in the archives of cautionary tales and object lessons. Mine was just beginning. I got dressed, made coffee, and prepared to face another day as a free man. Outside my window, Milwaukee was waking up. People heading to work, kids walking to school, life moving forward in all its messy, complicated, beautiful honesty. Somewhere in Phoenix, Elena was probably waking up on her sister's couch, wondering how her life had gone so wrong so fast. Somewhere in a state prison, Benny was learning what it meant to face real consequences for his actions. And here in my small apartment, I was learning what it meant to be free. The math was simple, the equation balanced, the books closed. Pros: freedom, self-respect, justice served, lessons learned. Cons: none.